Today's Toy Spot, we are having a look at the brand new DC Collectibles, the new Batman Adventures. This is the deluxe set number 36 to feature Batman, Robin, and the Mutant Leader. These characters based on the episode Legends of the Dark Knight, which aired on October 10th, 1998. The interesting, cool thing about the Legends of the Dark Knight, one of being one of my favorite episodes of the new Batman Adventures, basically told different tales of Batman, and in each tale had a different incarnation or interpretation of what the Dark Knight would look like. And during that episode, we got a brief glimpse of what the characters would look like taken from the Dark Knight Returns graphic novel. This is what these characters are based from. This comes to us from the folks over at DC Collectibles. And there's a warning choking hazard for children under 3 years of age. Be on the lookout. There are some small choking hazards in the set here. Spin around the back of the package. You've got the www.dccomics.com, a go-to place if you want to find out some cool upcoming releases from the folks over at DC Comics. Another place you can head over to is www.comicshoplocator.com should you wish to pick up this set for yourself and simply can't find a comic book store in your area. That being said, Spot's going to take a break and get this opened up. When we come back, though, we're going to get a better look at the brand new DC Collectibles, the new Batman Adventures, the Batman, the Robin, and Mutant Leader deluxe set. There's more heading your way, guys. Don't go anywhere. Stay tuned. Each of the three figures come with their own corresponding display stand, which we've seen before with DC Collectible releases. Here we have the Batman featuring a front and 3/4 back turn. And then you've got the Robin as well. In this case, a front side and 3/4 back turn. And lastly, the Mutant Leader, although a little loose, unfortunately, on the neck on this one. Mutant Leader has a 3/4 front, 3/4 back turnaround. Love the display stands, but I mentioned this before. I wish that the display stands also had a little peg right at the top here, where you could actually just stand the figure attaching it to the peg, rather than always relying on the back waist clip. Just a little small thing. I wish that they would incorporate like a peg point there. There's your stands, though. We've seen these before, so there's nothing really too much to talk about there. Let's have a look at these three figures, and again, they're super, super impressive figures. I have to say, like, when it comes to the DC Collectibles stuff, I might actually have to incorporate display stands, I think, perhaps, for the reviews here. When it comes to the DC Collectibles stuff, I'm super impressed that they don't think, you know what, we have to make use of existing molds. We have to try to churn out as much as we can using the same molds as we've done with previous release figures. When you do get a DC Collectible release, they are very distinct. They spend the money, they put the quality in when it comes to their molds, so that in this case, Mutant Leader, as well as Batman, look like they are entirely brand new molds. We're going to look at Mutant Leader first. Love the coloring on this guy. He's almost like a pastel, almost a bluish white colored skin. It certainly blows away the Mattel release of Mutant Leader that we got last year. A very, very nicely sculpted piece, a very nicely painted piece as well. He's also got something that was omitted from the Mattel release of this guy. I like that his studded belt. Now, actually, the portions here on his chest, as well as his belt portion here, are a soft, rubbery plastic. So if you are concerned that these might break, fear not. They are perfectly fine. They went as far ahead as actually giving them Mutant Leader here painted fingernails and thumbnails too, which is a nice touch. The face sculpt on Mutant Leader is very nicely done. I like how the mouth is also recessed from his teeth line so that the teeth do stand out. It looks like what they ended up doing was using a flat piece of plastic and simply painting the teeth over there, which is actually a better idea than if they had sculpted sharp fangs that could potentially break. So as you can see, it's actually a flat portion of plastic rather than the ragged, jagged plastic that they could have used for the teeth. So smart move going that way. The red in his visor gives a nice stark contrast to the more paler complexion to the rest of his body. Mutant Leader, though, looks phenomenal. And might I also say, very, very heavy. Batman is probably, I think, the heaviest of the three, but Mutant Leader has a good, sufficient, meaty heaviness to him. Batman we will look at, obviously, in a second. Just want to make sure I can get him stand properly there. Batman, I actually don't have so much the problem with getting him to stand. Mutant Leader, just by virtue of the fact that his legs are a little skinnier, he does seem a little top heavy. But again, I'm also displaying these guys on a fabric. If you had put them on, for example, the display stand would do a more than sufficient standing to get Mutant Leader to actually stand upright. And just get him to make sure his feet are nice and flush. There we go. You can see that he perfectly stands A-OK. So the stands do help, certainly help display these guys. Again, I kind of wish that they would be pegged rather than just relying on a clip on the back there. One of the things that Mutant Leader also comes included with, as well as Batman and Robin, is a pair of interchangeable hands. In this case, a pair of big oven mitt-sized grabbing hands for grabbing the Cape Crusader and throwing him around. Changing out the hands are extremely easy. Just go ahead and grab the forearm portion of the figure and very easily wiggle the hand off and do the exact same, just in reverse order, to replace it with the now grabbing hands. Love the look of those. Mutant Leader's articulation. His head is on a very nice ball joint. So not only can you get a tilt back and forth on the head, up and down motion, but the head essentially could rotate all the way around. He has an upper torso ball joint, which also lends itself to some additional dynamic poses that you can do with the figure, as well as he has a hinge out on the forearms, all the way rotation on the arms themselves, a bend and rotation on the forearm, and a rotation and hinge on the hands. Legs forward, back motion, a split leg on the thigh, so you can move the legs to about there, a hinge on the knee, and finally a hinge in the foot. Doesn't look like you could rotate the foot around, but a good adequate hinge there on the feet. So there is the Mutant Leader, a fine specimen of plastic there. Put him on his display stand so he can stand upright. Let's have a look at maybe Robin next. And Robin, by stature, is a lot smaller than the two larger figures that come included with her. Coloring on her, and as well, equally so on all three figures, very vibrant, very clean. No issues with paint whatsoever on these figures. I have to admit, too, one of the better uses of glass lenses. Sometimes when you put lenses on a frame of a figure, at least on the glass portion of a figure, it distorts the eyes. They ended up going with a nice range of an off yellow, but still not distorting the eye portion here of Robin. Head sculpt is quite good. Nice soft rubbery plastic for the cape. She is a lot obviously smaller than Batman and Mutant Leader for obvious reasons. She comes also with her slingshot. And to get it to display in her hand, she also comes with a pair of, well, actually 4 interchangeable hands in total. And we go ahead and just pull the hand out of its socket. The same thing as what we did with Mutant Leader. Replace it with the hand that we want to use, and I want to make sure I've got the right hand here for that. Replace the hand into the socket, then you can go ahead and add the slingshot. And the slingshot just fits between her thumb and her fingers, giving you something like that. Likely a way of going to be that I'm going to be displaying Robin here is with the slingshot in hand. Articulation on her is roughly about the same as Mutant Leader. Just taking that and shrinking it down, so to speak. The one thing that she does not have, though, is the torso articulation, but everything else basically about the same. So her head is on a nice ball joint, a very, very nice ball joint. The shoulders hinge out nice and easily, no restrictions whatsoever. You can rotate the arms all the way around. The cape does a good job of staying out of the way. A hinge at the elbow, a rotation on the forearm, and for that matter, you can also rotate the glove portion as well. Finally, she also has that rotation in the hand and a slight hinge back and forth there as well. Legs forward and back, a split on the leg, a bend at the knee, and a hinge in the foot. She doesn't seem to have any waist articulation, but that's perfectly fine. And there, ladies and gentlemen, is Robin. I'm going to go ahead and get her on her display stand. Like so. I might actually just bring this down a little bit and get her. There we go. There's Robin. Finally, I would say Mutant Leader would be the largest of the three figures, but I think actually that award could be given to Batman here. Batman is a beast. Comparing him to the size of Mutant Leader, in fact, let's move Robin over here. Just put her over here. Comparing him to the size of Mutant Leader may have height in his favor, but certainly Dark Knight Batman here has sheer width and just bulk to him. He is a bulking, brooding version of the Caped Crusader. He almost dwarfs the Mutant Leader by comparison. We'll just get him on his stand once again. Actually, we'll just take his waist clip here. Again, the waist clip a little on the loose side, unfortunately, for Mutant Leader. But if you can kind of get it around his waist and just prop him as such, it would not also be on all figures. It just happens to be the Mutant Leader here that I picked up has the slightly loose neck attachment there. So let's have a look at Batman. What a stunning, stunning looking figure release of this guy. It goes once again to show, if you give this to the right company, you can really get some excellent results. And not to compare apples to oranges, because I really don't think there's any comparison of apples being DC Collectibles to the slightly lesser orange that is Mattel. But just a much better representation here of Batman, and in really a true form of what the figure should have represented. He looks exactly like he was taken out of the show episode itself, which I think was at episode 19. Again, one of my favorite episodes from the new Batman Adventures. I like the coloring of blue that they've used for him. He's got a nice bulking presence to him. I love how the cape cascades off the top portion of his shoulders. And while not bright, in fact, a lot of the colors you can see on Batman's utility belt, the coloring of his outfit, and really even just for his cowl for that matter, he has a much more muted tone to him, especially the utility belt. It comes across much more a subtle yellow than a stark, bright yellow. There's a close-up look at his face, a nice glaring, grimacing look on Batman's face, as well as the shorter ears, something represented here on the Dark Knight release design of Batman. He does come with a pair of interchangeable hands. Doesn't come with any accessories, mind you, but he comes with a pair of Mauling or Fighting Mutant Leader shaped hands. He comes with a pair of those. And switching out the hands exactly the same way as changing out the Mutant Leader and Robin. Very, very easy. The utility belt appears to be a soft rubbery plastic, probably to assist in moving the legs forward and back so that the utility belt doesn't get in the way of that. Articulation on Batman. His head is on a ball joint, and you can see how much range of motion you can get from the ball joint in that neck. The arms hinge out, and no issues whatsoever with the cape. Cape does a good job of staying out of the way and not hindering any sort of motion in those arms. It does have a bend in the elbow, as well as a rotation in the forearm, and rotation and hinge in the hand. It does have a waist swivel as well, and for your legs, a forward, back, and out motion, a hinge at the knee, as well as a rotation in the foot. Now, this particular Batman doesn't have a hinge in the ankle, which I think suits it better, because then you can get a much sturdier stance from him without running the risk that the ankles could get a little loose over time. By far, this is one of my favorite new DC Collectible pickups. Again, taking one of my favorite episodes from the new Batman Adventures and putting it in plastic form. No company could have done it better than DC Collectibles. These should now be available now in your local comic book stores. Again, if you have a tough time finding your local comic book shop, head over to www.comicshoplocator.com. Find a comic book store in your area. Bingo, bango, bingo. And you can get this set in your hands. Highly recommended if you're a fan of the Dark Knight Returns, and specifically that episode. Today's Toy Spot, we were once again looking at the brand new DC Collectibles, the new Batman Adventures. This was set 36, featuring Batman, Robin, and Mutant Leader. Stay tuned, guys. Spot's going to have more Toy Spots heading your way. As always, thanks for watching. See you next time.